There's 169,000 charities in the UK, and probably not one of them is not trying something with AI.
There's a lot of conversation within the sector around how do you approach embedding AI? How do you do it in a way that's responsible? How do you do it in a way that, is compliant? How do you do it in a way that aligns with your values as well?
A year ago, I was really worried about the NFP sector being left behind in our adoption of AI. Well, last month, I was lucky enough to join an amazing group brought together by digital leaders. The group was the 100 most influential people in AI in the UK. And what was fantastic was to find that the charity sector was so well represented there and to hear great examples of innovation. Now, today, I'm joined by two of the other winners, Kit and Trevor, both from international development charities. First, Trevor, it's great to have you back on the podcast.
Thanks, Stuart and Kit. Great to meet you. Thanks for having me back for a second time. Really enjoyed the first. I'm Trevor Gordon. I'm Chief Digital and Technology Officer at Save the Children UK.
Thanks, Trevor. And yes, Kit, we've got someone we haven't had on the podcast before, but I've spoken to you a few times. It's brilliant to have you on, Kit. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's just been really great to meet you and also you, Trevor. And so I work at Tearfund, which is an international development charity, and I'm head of digital maturity there, which is sort of a bit of a silly jargon job title, but for asking curious questions around how can we use digital technology well.
I love that, asking curious questions. I think that's the heart of any good technology team, asking curious questions. So the event that I was talking about that we were all at was an AI100 event, which was a fantastic event because it was brilliant for meeting people. It was also at the House of Lords, so we got a lovely lunch included in it, which I really enjoyed, and some good opportunities for some selfies. But I wanted to take the opportunity, because all three of us were there for various reasons, and to talk about a little bit about, first of all, what we were doing and some of the work we're doing on AI, and then also what we saw at the event. So I don't know who wants to go first and tell me just a little bit about what they're doing with AI at the moment in their organization.
Well, I was just going to say, I thought it was a really good event, and as we were talking before earlier, a really good cross representation of public sector, not-for-profit, private sector, and even, like I was saying at my table, some really interesting startups and scale-ups are really couple purposeful led, and great to meet other people doing things in AI. So I've been at SAY started January 2024. And we've been doing a lot around AI, kind of a lot around in terms of experimentation. So we've been doing a lot of looking at, things like governance training, getting the foundations in place, a lot around Gen AI, a lot of kind of really looking at the business case value. We worked with a few partners like Ernst & Young and Microsoft around forming some wider not-for-profit guidance. So things like usage guidance, personas, use cases, a lot of that. And now we're really kind of moving to look to kind of scale. And I think the wider side of it, and why I was really keen to meet Kit and part of our conversation previously, I think it's potentially a really valuable capability and something that could really enable and empower the not-for-profit. But I think particularly in humanitarian charities, where the challenges over the last 12 months and over the last 24 months, it's moving from the old days of you get money out of safe, fly people over there, and you do stuff, to really more being around about devolved power, localization, capacity and capability building. And being at Net Hope last week, which I can mention later, we're seeing some really tangible examples of AI really adding value, but there's still a long way to go to build it. So to build inclusive AI, to look at AI skilling and a number of things there, which I'm sure Kit's very passionate about. And I know, Stuart, that you've spoken about on the podcast before. So great event. We're doing some good stuff at SAY, but I guess also feel really passionate about the wider use of it in the wider sector, particularly humanitarian. Yeah.
So I'm just going to pick up on one thing you said there, which I think is interesting. Is to do with this building a new capability in an organization, and it's not often this happens when you have a whole new area that really hasn't been there before. And as I know, we're used to having our finance teams, our fundraising teams, marketing, etc., etc., etc. But there's this whole capability around around AI, which is embedded across the organization. It's not just like a tech thing or a digital thing. It's got to be across the whole organization. I'm trying to figure out, in a period really of the last 2 or 3 years, how do we build that capability? What does it look like? How do we actually navigate through a world where it's all changing really fast as well and not end up wasting money? But the big advantage that we have as a sector is that we can share, we can collaborate, and it was good that both of you from the international development side of things. So a lot of parallels there, and I'm keen to hear a little bit more about how NetHope went this year, Trevor. But Kit, first of all, I mean, how does all that sit with you, and what did you get from it?
Yeah, I mean, oh, so much good stuff. Yeah, I agree with Trevor. The event itself, it was, I mean, one, it was just really lovely to be invited and sort of be recognised for work. So I really appreciated that, and digital leaders sort of organising the event for all of us. But similar to what both of you said, it was amazing to meet so many people from across different sectors. And I think in the charity sector, it's really easy to be in the same conversations again and again with sort of different actors. Whereas I think when you go to events where it's cross sector, you are hearing similar themes about, what is it, responsible AI, think about cybersecurity, transparency, how can you best implement AI? But maybe the way they're approaching it or the scale of which they're doing it or how they're tackling it is different. So I always find it really refreshing to almost like lift your eyes and see what's happening wider. So I think at my table, there was a real mix of people from sort of charity sector, public sector, private sector, discussions around how AI is going to transform legal practice through to what it means for sort of the local council and other charities. So I could have probably sat and listened to most people for the rest of the day. And sneakily, I did manage to meet a couple of people on the train on the way back as well. So I felt I had more time to chat to people. I really enjoyed it. And it was really encouraging to see how I think people across many sectors are wanting to use AI for good as well, rather than just creating profits, which I think can sometimes be the narrative around AI. So that's really encouraging. So at Tearfund, we've been on sort of a digital transformation journey in a more intentional way, I would say, probably for the last sort of 3 to 4 years. And I think for us, that was a really helpful foundation so that when AI, well, generative AI really exploded onto the mass market, we already had language around, why digital is good. Digital is sort of no longer a IT digital team thing. We're all digital workers. We've been doing a lot of work around, the idea of a digital mindset, and in order for everyone to have a seat at the table, to be able to access technology to achieve their goals, everyone needed to sort of build that understanding a little bit. So you didn't need to become a coder, but you need to understand what a coder does in order to be able to think what are the opportunities for your team. So I think having that backdrop at Tearfund around previous conversations around culture and skills and sort of acknowledging the value of digital helped us start implementing or exploring and experimenting with AI quite quickly. And I think as well, the fact that Tiffin has my role, which is focusing on digital transformation, was helpful. So, I lead AI with our head of IT, and he's trying to fit it in alongside leading the whole IT department. So I think as well, we've got that benefit that I've got some more time and capacity. And I know some charities are having to carve that out of other work. So we're really thankful for that. But how we approached AI, because we're on Google and sort of Google Enterprise, Google's been quite sort of open with their application of AI. So it's been quite easy and straightforward for us to encourage people to experiment in a safe way, because we know it's all within the same ecosystem. There's less concerns around data because it's all within our own workspace. So that's been really helpful for us as well. But alongside that, we were really quite quick to develop really basic guidelines. So here are like 4 things you can do, and here are 4 things please don't do. Sort of really drill them home rather than creating a really long AI policy. And I think, there's benefits and challenges with taking that approach. There's a lot of conversation within the sector around how do you approach embedding AI? How do you do it in a way that's responsible? How do you do it in a way that, is compliant? How do you do it in a way that aligns with your values as well? Because it's not just about written down word. It's also, does it reflect who you are as an organization? So we actually took an approach that was more, here are the guidelines and guardrails. We are going to continue exploring the challenges around AI, how we can mitigate risk, how we can explore it safely, how we can align it with our values. But alongside that, we do want to experiment. We want to see what the opportunities are. And so we've gone quite heavy on sort of training. I've probably done about 20 different workshops over the last couple of years, exploring, the basics of AI 101 and just keeping on sort of drilling that home. And what is chatbot prompting, or showing and telling what different colleagues are doing, trying to capture sort of the innovators, the early adopters, and sort of celebrate them and what they're doing. And then also thinking about where are the more sort of unique applications. And so, say, for example, global advocacy colleagues. And last year, there was a huge amount of elections happening globally. So we had like a whole session on how AI, and maybe the more doom side of AI rather than the boom side of sort of misinformation and, fake news and all that, and how that could negatively affect sort of elections last year. So we also did 5 ways that you can stop AI from affecting an election, but just creating space for colleagues to come together, to chat, to think about potentially technology's roles in these spaces. So that's a little bit of what we've been doing. We are also sort of trying to pilot more tangible, I would say, rather than culture learning, getting sort of the buy-in and confidence around using technology, particularly AI. We've also been looking at doing a couple of pilots, whether it's around stream of AI productivity for individuals and how you can just use it to help you in your general workload, through to looking at how can we, with our sort of programmatic work, how could we use AI there to help scale some of our work or help make our resources more accessible, thinking about languages there as well. So yeah, that's a little bit of what we've been doing in the space. But I think, similar to what Trevor said, the opportunity for AI to support organizations, I think that's what's really exciting, because I don't know anyone that isn't working in a charity where they don't have enough people, they don't have enough money to hire the new people or hire in agencies, or everyone's sort of stuck with the two challenges of we don't have enough time and we don't have enough money or people. So I think AI there really has the potential to really help organizations maybe cut a bit of the boring admin and do a bit more of why people join the organization.
I really like that, the approach you're taking, the insight, and you're making it really inclusive. I also think your point about cross-sector learning is really spot on. So no, great stuff.
And can I ask something? So something I picked up from what you're talking about there is that you are trying to build skills, build capability internally with your organization, trying to make sure that you've got that across the organization, not just focused in one place. What I'm interested in is I've noticed in the private sector, in tech companies, in a large number of places, people are taking big risky bets on AI. People are feeling the need to actually invest large amounts of money because they're worried that they won't be able to keep up, that they're going to get left behind. And that's quite an interesting approach. And obviously, big risky bets, some of them pay off and some of them don't. In the charity sector, what I've heard from, I think, from both of you, and what I've been hearing more broadly, is that we're not going for the big risky bets so much. What we're doing is we're building our capabilities, we're building our understanding, we're doing what charities do really well, which is investing in their people and trying to get people to understand how they can get the most from it, with a thought that further down the line we'll then be able to really reap the benefits from this if we actually invest in our people and invest in their capabilities. I'm saying all of that out loud to see if I'm getting
No,
wild and see if I've got that right.
I agree. I think you and Kit spoke about some great themes, which is also how to embed it and make it sustainable. And I think
Mm,
there's a real thing in charities where we have proof of concept overload or pilotitis, and how do you actually scale these operationally? And Kit, you hit on some themes which are really relevant around net hope, around making this inclusive. Same as us, we've taken an approach with some of our large tech providers, because there's grants, it
mm,
helps us to get there. There's some learnings to kind of accelerate. But if we look, for example, around for larger NGOs, it's okay, but where we see, like in the global south, local actors lack access, they lack the funds, they lack the skills. So it's when to that point, how do we really look to make it for everyone, and not just say the larger NGOs or the larger charities? And I think, Stuart, to your point as well, how do you build that that AI and digital skilling for your staff, for your
mm,
colleagues, for your beneficiaries? We know right now, as an example, 1 in 3 kids in the UK live below the poverty line. And if you think of that digital skills gap at that level, How do you ensure that that cohort has access to the training, access to the internet, access to devices where they're getting at, so that digital poverty gap doesn't go. But I think, Stuart, to your point, the whole thing of making this sustainable is an ethos I see. It's the challenges around resource, budget, capacity, all of that good stuff. I think the other thing as well, just to touch on, is almost like collaborations becoming the new competition, because we see almost so much duplication across multiple nonprofits trying different things. There's 169,000 charities in the UK, and probably not one of them is not trying something with AI. So how do we build these standards? How do we build these use cases, these personas, these trainings, to Kit's point at the start, where you've got that facilitation of cross learning and building tools, all those things, not just to benefit the larger charities, and making it equitable across that. I think that's the real kind of exciting challenge and problem to solve.
So I'm hearing lots there that I like. I was on a panel a week or two back, and someone mentioned the charity sector was investing. Obviously, we'd like to be moving ahead quickly, and it's a bit of a shame that we can't move ahead more quickly. And I called that out about a year ago. I thought, oh, the charity sector probably won't be able to move ahead as fast with this as we'd like to. Whereas actually, what I'm seeing is we're actually taking some very good approaches across the sector. You mentioned pilotitis. I'd say, but there have been a lot of pilots, but we've actually been taking a very methodical and thorough approach to AI, which I've really enjoyed seeing, and that we're sharing that learning, and we are actually understanding that over the coming years there will be all sorts of techniques and frameworks that develop all around AI, and that we're looking how can we build, and how can we build those well, and how can we build the skills of our staff and our people, but also of our volunteers. And you mentioned how can we make sure our beneficiaries are able to take advantage of this. So we're really trying to build thoroughly and spreading this across a large number of people, which I think puts the charity sector in quite a good, unique position, because that's something that the other areas don't have the luxury, or they're not in a position to be able to do that, which we can.
We don't have the non-competes, and I think it's a really good insight story. Yeah.
So you mentioned NetHope briefly there. So there's been so many events actually recently where people have had a chance to collaborate and talk. I know I'm starting to feel that September, October, November is like the exhausting season where you just go from one to another. And Kit was mentioning it's good to lift your eyes and talk to people from different groups and different sectors. And I've been doing a lot of that as well, talking to people. I had a fascinating one in the health sector where hearing lots of what they're doing and comparing that to the charity sector. But I guess both Trevor and Kit, from what you've seen in the various different places you've been in the last few weeks, are you spotting some themes where the charity sector is doing the things the same as other sectors, and where international development is the same, or anywhere where we're doing things differently? Is there anything interesting you've spotted there?
I went to the World AI Summit in Amsterdam at the beginning of October. It was really brilliant, and again, it was cross sector. So I think the analogy I'm using for it is, in the charity sector, sometimes I feel like our use of AI is like, look at this lovely grape, and grapes are lovely and they're sweet and everyone loves a grape. But then I went to sort of this AI summit, and it was like, here's a whole fruit salad of what everyone is doing with AI. And I was like, wow, yeah, there's nothing wrong with the grape, but actually there's a huge amount of stuff we could do. So I'll give you two examples, and this is sort of more around, agentic era and employing agents, which I think is still quite, from conversations I've been in, is still quite early doors within the charity sector. But one, I went to a PwC sort of workshop, and they developed an interactive sort of scenario planning game, where you went in, and the first sort of 5-10 minutes was briefing you, and it was, you're like the head of AI at this made up company, and it's Black Friday, and no one is able to purchase anything in the stores or online, and you needed to fix it. And you needed to get like 80% satisfaction across like investors, leadership, and customers. And you were given, they had screens set up all across the room, and we went into little teams, and we had to build agents with the amount of points we had that would solve the problem. And it was like connecting agents to agents, and taking an agent, like running the scenario and seeing where the score would come, and then taking out an agent and sort of updating it with maybe an agent that connected to multiple agents, or an agent that was more strategic, or an agent that was more specific, or yeah, there was lots of different ways we're doing it. And on reflecting on that, I was thinking, wow, say, where Trevor and I work within sort of the humanitarian space, when like a crisis hits, I'm sure, say, similar to Tearfund, we have so many processes, and this is exactly how we'll respond. And, they're really well thought through, they're very robust, like they're brilliant. But I wonder what it would look like to employ agents within those, both for the actual delivery of humanitarian sort of emergency response, and the sort of communication side to get an appeal up and running, like, to market, reaching out to sort of news and media. And I thought, wow, like I'm still mulling over what that could look like, but I thought that's really exciting as well, especially thinking about the rapid nature in which you need to hit an appeal with, to be able to sort of gather the right data, or even just the right amount of people internally. And yeah, I just thought it was a really brilliant experience.
Can I just interrupt? I saw a great case study from Medair on something they were doing in exactly that space, where they were using agents to collect data. They do initial surveys when they go into a humanitarian situation. They need to get a lot of information from a lot of people quickly, and typically they would use volunteers to interview them. And they're making use of AI in that space. And so it's fascinating when you have these conversations. You start realizing lots of potential for sharing there, and saying that we tried this. This is what worked. This is what didn't work.
But I think that also comes into sort of when you're trying to lead AI in an organization, you're sort of perpetually trying to surf the wave, as it were.
Mm.
New technology and developments are coming, and your inbox is constantly full of this new thing is happening. So, um, and it's all about how can you surf it well for your organization in that moment. But even just conversations like this, that you just learn more of what people are doing, and yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. The second thing I was going to say around agents, and this is more sort of the value that some private sector actors are placing on agents. So there was one main stage speaker, and he was talking about how they've been encouraging adoption of agents within his company. And one of the ways that they've done it is by giving bonuses to people for every agent they make. And I thought, wow, you think about, I mean, we're not going to see that in the charity sector, right? I don't think my CEO is going to give me a bonus for creating an agent. But I think if you think about, traditionally, bonuses would be given for like signing big clients or sealing big deals. To then place the same value of the bonus on developing an agent, because it's still positively impacting sort of the bottom line. I was like, that's a really interesting way to one view agents, and also sort of the value they're placing on it. So again, that sort of made me reflect on what could the future of agents look like in the charity sector, and also, to what level and what application. But yeah, I think that's an area I'm really interested in to see how it expands, especially I think over the next 6 to 12 months.
Previously, a lot of my work was in the private sector, and exactly the kind of scenario you discussed, Kit, and was around not only about spinning an agent up, but if you look across, say an entire corporate ecosystem where they do manufacturing, or let's say a large global multinational. And one of the real challenges is, how do you look at that overall governance and management of that ecosystem of agents, of how they interact with each other, particularly where you're seeing a lot of the agents managing other agents. And you're seeing now a lot of, not just in the on the customer facing side, but more in the kind of back and mid office functions as well. No, and I think the points you make really are really, really valid. I was going to give a plug slightly. At SAVE, we have part of our organization called the Humanitarian Leadership Academy, and they just did a great piece of research on use of AI in the humanitarian sector. So I'm going to read out a couple stats here. They did this in August, and they did this with over 2,500 practitioners in 144 countries and territories. So they've just published this, and they did this in partnership with, what's the organization? Oh, the Data Friendly Space, who are a great organization. And a lot of the insight you just mentioned really comes there. So they're seeing high interest, low adoption. So kind of the point that you guys have talked about, which is everyone's wanting to do it, and a lot of optimism. But how do we actually really embed it? Kind of something we've just touched on as well, which is that AI divide. Larger NGOs are doing it. How do we actually work with those small charities, particularly the ones that lack access, funding, and the skills to do it? And I think really what you've shown is there's some great use cases in there. It's that emerging use cases, whether it's disaster prediction, translation, chatbots, data analysis. Same as you, seeing some really exciting stuff in that space. Like I think it's Global British Red Cross is doing some really, really cool stuff, for example, around the whole logistics management there, which is very, very cool. The same one, and what was really interesting, there was a fantastic colleague from Path. She was from Kenya, based in South Africa, and a lot of it was around the ethical concerns. So, for example, they're working on a African LLM, because if you look at the kind of ability around Gen AI to around regional dialects, language, the aspects around that kind of that bias and that governance, which I was really, really encouraged about. So it's one of the things that came out of that is how do you get those sector-wide standards just to build that? So it is more inclusive in looking at, say, AI for all rather than just let's say the traditional kind of Western cultures. The last one, Stuart, which you've touched on and we've mentioned a few times, that need for training. Without that digital literacy, the AI literacy, it just potentially deepens those inequalities. And those were it was really interesting. And those were really kind of key themes at NetHope. And that was a recent event I've got to. NetHope is you guys probably know better than me. It's an annual conference and a great organization that sets up almost tech for good in the humanitarian space. Came out of there, I think, was everyone I spoke to was feeling really positive, and it was kind of the themes we spoke about the need today, the need to collaborate, share, and actually not avoid that duplication where we can, and make best use of great talent like Kit, yourself, and build that out. And how do you actually embed it? So now really encouraging, but I would just encourage your listeners to have a look at that piece of report on AI there. A great piece of work by my colleagues. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Can you just say the name of the report again, Trevor? Just in
Yeah,
case anyone
it's
missed
the
it.
Humanitarian Leadership Academy, and they did it in partnership with the Data Friendly Space, so the HLA. It is called Artificial Intelligence in the Humanitarian Sector, Mapping Current Practice and Future Potential. So really, really good piece of work. I just wanted to give it a plug. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic plug there. Yeah, NetHope. There's so many great organisations which have
Yeah.
been having these conferences. NetHope. I remember I was just trying to work it out in my head. I think it was 16 years ago. I was at a NetHope conference, and there was so much stuff going on there that they were developing stuff. And having seen it grow over time, it's really like so many of these organisations really found its feet and really actually is now a critical part of our overall ecosystem. Just a couple of points I wanted to pick up on that. You mentioned agentic governance and the idea that we're doing so much. There's a big bubble, loads and loads of stuff happening at the moment. People building agents and everything like that. And the future will need to get on top of that. The governance all around how that works. Part of me is a bit doommongerish of like remembering. Okay, when we went through every other big bubble of like when we started doing lots of things with data and we started building things that we started to. I don't know. Even if I think back to documents and information, that we started storing those information, and we had a huge governance problem later. But on the other hand, we dealt with it. It didn't kill us. We did go through that, and so we can learn from that and get better this time. I think with as we go through the excitement of building lots and lots of agents, and it shouldn't kill the innovation there. And then the adoption side of things, the all the lessons we've learned all around what makes good adoption, and I'm seeing that we're really doing that. People really want it, but we're also giving people the support and the training to get there. So lots of exciting stuff going on there. I guess in the last couple of minutes, do we have anything on the horizon that either of you have got coming up that you'd like to mention?
I would just say I really enjoyed both yours and Kit's insight. And I won't take credit for it, but there was a phrase someone used at NetHope around transparency over tech. And it was just to pick up, I think, on Kit's insight and yours, which is it's having that transparency across the use of agents and what's driving those algorithms and what the purpose is. So I really enjoyed the discussion on that. And to be honest, I'm looking forward to kind of leading up into Christmas and hopefully by the time this comes out, because it's been a really busy year. But I think kind of yeah, I think there are probably a few seasons coming up. But as you said, I think I'm going to one of the I think digital skills thing on citizen empowerment, and then a few others. So yeah, it's just a busy time of year. But as you say, Kit, great to get out, share, learn, and collaborate. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would agree. So wonderful to meet both of you and hear like what you're doing. Especially that report. I will be checking that out later today, probably straight after this, and showing it
It's
with some
it's
of
a
my colleagues.
it's by two of my colleagues, Lucy and Kaman, and it's a great piece of work. Yeah.
I think that's really good. I'm going to have to wrap up now because we've been chatting there for ages. That was time on all these podcasts. Time flies past, and I can't believe how quickly we got through it. But I am conscious that people listen to this whilst walking their dogs, and if we go on for too long, then the dog just gets exhausted. So we're going to have to wrap up there. So thank you very much for both coming on today. It's been brilliant chatting to you, and Trevor, it's always lovely having you on, and Kit, we've got a new guest now. So thank you. I'm hoping we'll get a chance to chat again.
I've really enjoyed listening to Kit more than myself, and I've just stuck a link in the chat there to the research I mentioned and sent to both of you. So I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. That's okay, Trevor. What I'll do is I'll include that with the newsletter as well, so people can connect through to it. Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Kit and Trevor. It's been brilliant having you on today. Thanks a lot, and bye.
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 You've been listening to an episode of Virtue and Virtuosity brought to you by VirtueChain, the AI consultancy for the charity and not-for-profit sector. Did you know that there is also a newsletter that goes with this podcast containing news on AI and tech in the charity sector alongside a podcast summary? You can check out previous copies and subscribe through the link on the VirtueChain website at virtuechain.co.uk, or through LinkedIn, check out the profile of Stuart Muskilling, that's me, for the subscribe button to the newsletter.